Alright, 6th graders, gather round! I've got a juicy story to share about one of the longest and most intense conflicts in medieval history, the 100-Year War. You won't believe how this thing dragged on, but trust me, it's a wild ride. It all started back in 1337, when the King of England and the King of France got into a heated dispute over who should rule the French throne. Spoiler alert, it didn't end well. The two kings went at it for over a century, with battles, sieges, and countless lives lost. According to historians, the 100-Year War was one of the longest and most devastating conflicts in European history, with over 2 million casualties. Can you imagine fighting the same war for your entire lifetime? Talk about persistence, am I right? But you know what they say, every cloud has a silver lining. Out of this conflict came some important lessons about leadership, strategy, and the power of determination. In fact, the 100-Year War is credited with helping to shape the modern nation-states of England and France and paving the way for the Renaissance. So, 6th graders, the next time you think your history homework is a drag, just remember the epic tale of the 100-Year War. It's a reminder that even the longest, most frustrating battles can lead to amazing things.
Welcome to a tale that could make even the longest-running TV dramas look brief, the Hundred Years' War. Picture this. England and France, two medieval superstars, locked in a messy saga of battles, betrayals, and begrudging alliances for over a century. There were knights, castles, crowns, and more than a few questionable hairstyles. But beyond the clanging swords and dramatic monologues, the Hundred Years' War left an indelible mark on modern politics and the development of the state. Buckle up. We're in for a journey where even the villain might have a soft side. Act 1. The Crown Fiasco. Our story kicks off with a British-French entanglement. England's Edward III was unhappy when the French crown was passed to Philip VI after the death of Charles IV. Edward thought he had a legitimate claim to it through his mother. Ever heard of Edward's mom? But the French, never ones to pass up a challenge, firmly handed it to Philip. Edward was miffed and declared himself King of France, setting off a war that would be prolonged beyond even the wildest expectations. Modern political lesson number 1. Claims to leadership can get messy if anything. Edward's declaration should have come with a fine print. This may take a while. Just like in today's politics, where different parties and nations contest leadership and territory, Edward's family drama shows that unclear lines of succession can cause real headaches. Keep those wills up to date, monarchs. Act 2. A flock of battles and some legendary knights. For nearly half a century, the war was an on-again, off-again clash filled with iconic moments and battles that would make any Hollywood director swoon. England scored early successes, thanks in part to the longbow, a weapon that allowed commoners to shoot down the French knightly class from a safe distance. Major wins, like the Battle of Crécy and the Battle of Agincourt, were almost embarrassingly decisive for the English, proving that new technology, in this case, the longbow, could give a serious edge. Modern political lesson number 2. Technology can redefine power today. Technology continues to shift power dynamics. The longbow was the medieval equivalent of the internet, leveling the playing field and giving commoners an upper hand over the elite. For governments and political movements today, understanding and controlling emerging technologies can often determine victory or defeat. Act 3. The rise of nationalism. By this point, England and France were not just fighting for crowns but also for something deeper, identity. While England lost control over most of its lands in France, this only sharpened its focus on its own island identity. France, meanwhile, was coalescing around the idea of a singular, unified nation. By the end of the war, both sides were more than just thrones and crowns, they were proto-nations. Joan of Arc, the Maid of Orléans, became a powerful symbol for France, showing that people could rally around a cause larger than one individual or dynasty. Modern political lesson number 3. Identity is key to statehood. This struggle marked the beginning of a new kind of allegiance that transcended personal loyalties to individual rulers. In today's world, nation-states still lean on this idea, stirring pride in shared heritage or language to create unity. The Hundred Years' War reminds us that politics can be most stable when there is a common identity to unify people. Act 4. The never-ending peace process. The Hundred Years' War, despite its name, did not wrap up in a clean 100 years. Treaty after treaty, truce after truce, the two sides kept falling back into skirmishes. It was not until 1453 to 116 years later that England finally stopped fighting for control of French lands, losing all but the port of Calais. And while the French celebrated, it was hardly the end of their bickering. Yet from the ashes of this prolonged conflict, the seeds of modern diplomacy began to sprout. Both sides realized that constant war was draining resources and forcing them to rethink their approach to power. Modern political lesson number 4. War is expensive. Diplomacy is cheaper. The Hundred Years' War is the ultimate reminder that long, drawn-out conflicts are rarely worth the trouble. Nations today may have to grapple with conflict, but sustainable power comes from learning to balance defense with diplomacy. England and France eventually learned to live alongside each other, a reminder that diplomacy might be tough, but so is a century of skirmishes. Epilogue. A lasting legacy of borders and bureaucracy. The Hundred Years' War might be long over, but its impacts are still alive and well. National identities began to form, technological advancements changed warfare, and the idea that states could exist as separate entities with their own boundaries emerged. The English Parliament gained power as kings needed funding for the war, and France's feudal lords began to defer to the central monarchy, a sneak preview of state centralization. So, next time someone proposes a lengthy dispute or an ambitious claim, remember Edward and Philip's endless feud. If medieval England and France taught us anything, it is that political drama can last a lifetime, but lasting stability only comes from recognizing where one kingdom ends and another begins, and from knowing when to hang up your armor and, perhaps, learn to get along.